everybody in some form faces and tends to not know how to approach, tends to approach it almost like guessing, and that is, what price should you charge for whatever you're selling? How do you price things? Then, folks have a little celebration, some food, and some certificates for everybody today, and that'll be what we do. So, let's talk about operations. When you think of the topics over the 6 weeks, well, they spent some time on the numbers and bookkeeping, and they spent some time on marketing, and they talked about getting resources, finance. What are we talking about when we talk about operations? The day-to-day. The nitty-gritty of your business.
How you keep things organized?
How you get things organized. So, let's be a little more specific. It's how you do what you do. And you don't want to be this lady. When you think of operations, what you should, well, it moved. What you should think about is, it's where you live. It's how you do what you do. It's the little detail things that distinguish, at the end of the day, the value you're creating for customers from what other people are doing. So think about that. When you go to work each day in your business, what are you there to do?
What?
Work.
Serve the customer?
Serve customers.
Generate money.
Make candles. Sew bibs. No, you're there to create value. You make money based on what? You're not there to make money. You're there to create value. And if you create enough value, people pay for it. They'll pay more than it costs you to make it. You make a profit. But the profit, you got to understand, and you're going to look at me funny here. Business is not about profit. Business is not about profit. I don't know a lot of entrepreneurs who get up in the morning and go, I'm going to work to see how much profit I can make today. What is profit? I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying it's not the be-all, end-all purpose. What is profit?
It's excessive value?
Yes, it is that.
The connection you make with your customers?
It results from the connection you make with your customers. Yes.
Reward.
And it is a reward. You should look at profit as a signpost. If you're making a lot of profit, it's telling you you're making the right decisions. If you're making not much profit or no profit, it's telling you your decisions are not as good as they could be. It's your scorecard. What's wrong?
Just move it a little closer to your mouth.
I can't hear you.
Just move it a little closer to your mouth.
Okay? Yes.
Is profit related to value? Like, who defines value? Is it your customer or is it you?
It's a wonderful question. And I'm going to expand on that question when we get to price. But let me shortcut it and give you a little bit here. When you guys, and most people, set their prices, right? What's your biggest consideration?
What you could offer, what you bring to the table.
It should be, but that's not.
What the customer can afford?
That should be, but it's not.
Is it how much you need to make to function? Like, you
Yeah.
have to know how much you have to earn in order
You want to know how much what you have to do to break even, what you have to do to make so much profit.
to move on.
But on the ground, if I'm with you in your business tomorrow, and the preoccupation of way too many entrepreneurs is, what did it cost me to make it? I need to charge enough to cover what it cost me to make it, and then add a little markup. Right? Isn't that how most people think? That's the total wrong way to think about it. Think about this. Go to a grocery store. Okay? Go to the meat department in the grocery store. You'll see hamburger. Right? You'll see ground round. You'll see sirloin steaks, T-bone steaks, tenderloin, prime rib. Right? Each of them has a price on it. And that price, so much per ounce or per pound, right? Yes?
Yep.
Is there any difference between the price of the hamburger and the sirloin?
Yes.
Huge. Where do they both come from? The same cow. It didn't cost them any more to produce the sirloin than to produce the hamburger. But the price is way different because of,
Well, isn't it maybe some parts are harder to get to?
it's got nothing to do with the cost. Zero. It costs so much to raise the cow. It's about demand, and demand means customers, and customers mean customer value. Price is a statement of value. When you put a price on something, you're effectively putting a number on how much value customers get.
But there's more demand for the hamburger than there is for the sirloin.
That's right. And
That's how the price might be low.
the price is lower relative to the relationship between the supply and demand of hamburgers right now. The point is, there's no difference in the cost. It costs them the exact same to produce the hamburger as it does to produce the steak. It's got nothing to do with cost. It has to do with what will people pay today for a T-bone steak. Well, there's a shortage of T-bone steaks. Will people pay even more? Right? It's got nothing to do with cost. Or I'll give you a different example. Maybe you don't like my new example. Next time you're on an airplane, ask the 5 people sitting closest to you on the airplane, what did you pay to be on this flight today? What will you get? 5 different prices. Probably all lower than whatever you paid. Does it cost the airline a different amount to fly you than to fly you?
Nope.
No. But the price points are significantly different. Right? Like the guy who booked at the last minute. What's his price? It's much higher. Is it because it costs the airline more to issue the ticket at the last minute? Doesn't cost the airline any difference. Why are they charging a high price at the last minute? Because the guy at the last minute is probably a business guy who has to be in Detroit tomorrow, and his company will pay the freight. They see the value. They'll pay the higher price. You try to book at the last minute because you're going to see a friend, you think, I'm not paying that price. I'll go another week or something. So price is a statement of value. And I'll come back to that and I'll explain more, and I hope you understand. But I want to stay on operations then. Operations is how you create the value. So when you focus on the little things, more value is created for the customer, less money is wasted. You get, by focusing on the little things, you get more ideas for improvements and enhancements and ways to do it better, so you innovate more. This is the essence of operations. More specifically, we're talking now, not theoretically, not in a business plan, on the ground about implementation. Operations is a day in the life of the business. So if I make bibs for babies, decorative bibs, operations is, what's my process for actually making a bib? Right? So, think of operations as inputs, throughputs, outputs. Okay? Now, what would operations be at Taco Bell? So they have to prep food at a time, they have to buy inventory, right? Let's take a day in the life of Taco Bell. What's the first thing that happens? The doors open and you get customers.
No, you,
You will probably open the doors for your employees prior to.
Okay, you open the doors, you have the employees in, but when we start doing what we do, the first step in operations becomes an order is entered. How many order entry points do we have at Taco Bell? Two. The front counter and drive-through window. Okay. I drive up to the window or I walk up to the counter and I want 3 bean burritos. What happens?
prep them. They prep them. You take the order.
Oh, they have to take the order.
Take the order.
Okay, so you're the person there. I want 3 bean burritos, and you turn around and yell to the cook, 3 beans. No, that's not what happens. You made an operating decision to purchase what's called a point of sale system, a glorified cash register that's actually a computer, right? And that order is processed in that point of sale system, and what happens? It goes to a screen in the back, right? Like a TV screen. And they've got 2 production lines set up back there, right? Now, where does it go when it goes on that screen? Well, they have another operating issue. If I have an order from the drive-up window versus the front counter, which one gets priority? Why?
Because the reason you go from drive-through is because it's fast.
It's not supposed to be faster. It's fast food. It should all be fast. You want to be consistent. Why does a drive-up window get first service?
Because you can only serve a limited amount in the window, so you want to get them out of there as soon as possible.
You're close.
The work.
Well, I may leave. I go to the counter and it takes too long. They have cars that are backing up, and where do the cars back up to? Onto the street. Can you have that? No, you can't. You got to keep those cars moving. That's an operating decision, right? Okay, now the order comes back to the screen, and what happens? There are workers there, assemblers, right? And I'm in a good mood today. I'm going to put more beans on this one than I did yesterday. No? There's portion control. There's a precise amount of beans and a precise amount of lettuce and a precise amount of tomato that's going on that burrito. Well, you know, I'm trying to switch it up today. Today I think I'll put the lettuce in first. And I got to do it exactly the same way every time. And I got this production line in front of me, and where's the lettuce?
It should be first.
It's always right here. And where are the tomatoes? They're always right here. There's not like a random, where are we going to put stuff today? It's laid out precisely. Okay. Now we're starting to feel operations. Day in the life. They create value by the way they create that burrito. Now, it's 11:40 in the morning. Okay? And our Taco Bell is just down the street here. And we just got a phone call from St. Anne's. And they've ordered 22 chicken taco salads. Because they got something going on at St. Anne's. Which takes longer to make? A taco, a burrito, a chicken taco salad. Chicken taco salad takes 3 times longer than the burrito. And I just got an order for 22 at what time? And is 11:40 kind of significant in my day? That's peak time. It's lunchtime, right? And right as the peak starts to take off, I get slammed with this 22 chicken taco salads. What do I got to do? Yeah, but I can't just do it on the fly randomly. What do I got to do?
You got to give them a realistic expectation of when those taco salads are going to be done.
Oh, I got to tell them they're going to get less value? That's not going to keep me in business very long. You're saying, let's lower the customer's expectations? Bullshit. You want to raise that expectation, you want to delight the customer. So I design operations to anticipate this. What's this thing called that got slammed by 22 orders?
The kitchen?
It is called the kitchen. This is something we call a bottleneck. No, I expect it. I didn't plan, I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I know that stuff's going to happen, right? Why do I call it a bottleneck?
Because it ties up your operations.
It ties up, it backs stuff up. Things slow down, right? So, think about a pail of water. If you have a pail of water and you turn it over, how fast will water come out? Real fast. Same amount of water in a bottle that you turn over backs up because of the bottleneck, right? I have to anticipate the bottleneck, and I have. That's why I have 2 production lines. Where does this order get routed to? The other production line, right? So that the main production line is never disturbed. They just keep rocking in terms of what they're doing there, right? That's operations. Make sense? So what we're trying to do is approach operations systematically. And you'll see why. You'll see the magic here. Here's the key slide, probably the most important slide of the presentation. You see something in the middle called your operating model. Okay, and come back to that, but that's the holy grail. That's the centerpiece. And then what do you see around it? A whole bunch of critical issues that define operations, and operations are defined by. So, bottlenecks are part of operations, right? Here's a big one that's come up a couple times over these 6 weeks. What do I mean by capacity?
Your ability, how much you're able to do.
How many orders can you fulfill in a day, in an hour, right? So let's stay with my lady who makes bibs, right? Who do you think does all the sewing? She does. She doesn't have like a team of seamstresses. Where do you think she's working from? Home. She has acquired 4 sewing machines, but that's just to do different kind of jobs. She's the only one sewing right now, right? Can we watch her sew a standard of her kind of bib and see how much time and materials it takes? Can we figure out that in one day she can produce 9 bibs? That's her capacity, right? And if you remember back to the week on the numbers, I want to know how capacity compares to break even. Because if my break even is 12 units a day, and at max capacity I can only make 9 units a day, you know I got to fix something. This ain't going to work. So you start connecting the dots. What you're going to see is operations is intimately tied to break even in the numbers. It's intimately tied to marketing. These connections. I want to start connecting what you've been exposed to over 6 weeks. So we'll talk more about capacity and how it can be enhanced. But to enhance capacity, I have to do what? Change my operating model. Change my operating model. Now, this is in South Bend, might there be a number of older women in the community that like to sew and don't work? Could she potentially outsource some of what she's doing, giving them precise procedures on how she wants the bibs done and checking in on them? Now she's starting to change her operating model, right? Getting smarter, introducing maybe technology, introducing maybe more equipment. Okay, how about this one? Quality. Where's my candle lady? Hi there.
Hi.
How's the business coming along?
Pretty good.
I bet you can tell me how many candles you can make in an hour. Now I'm going to ask you a personal question.
Okay.
What's the quality of your candles?
I think it's pretty good.
I expect it is too. But I want you to all hear how she answered my question. She said, as most of you would, nobody's going to say, yeah, I got really shitty quality. Most of you say, offer good quality. I think it's pretty good. Offer great quality. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But in many instances, you don't know. Why don't you go, Mike, why would I not know what my quality is? You can't know what your quality is till what?
You sell it?
No. No.
Your customer feedback.
You're skipping a step.
They buy it.
You try.
You can't know what your quality is until you define exactly what you mean by quality and you have some way to measure it. Okay? What's the quality of this presentation? Don't answer that. What's the quality of this presentation? If you said, Mike, what's the quality of your presentations? And I go, it's pretty good. That's like me saying, I don't know. Would you measure the quality of this presentation based on how entertaining it is? Would you measure it based on how interesting it is? Okay, what if it wasn't entertaining and it wasn't interesting, but it was informative? It was that you learned something. You didn't get entertained. You had to keep your eyes open to stay awake, but you learned some jewels that you could really use. Now what would you tell me? You tell me my quality's pretty good, right? If I haven't determined what the measures of quality are for a candle, right? How easily does it light? How long does it burn? How strong is the scent? Those are indicators or measures of quality, right? So you got to decide what is quality in what's your business? What's quality in a nursing home, right? Our nurses are really friendly and they're very patient-centered, right? But a disproportionate number of people seem to be dying in our nursing home. Well, then just being friendly isn't the only measure of quality that you want to focus on, right? So you've got to define quality, and that's part of this operating model. Okay? Inventory is a big issue. Why? Because the amount of inventory you have or don't have on hand. So here's a good example. We have a woman in our program in South Bend, and she has an online boutique, online store, and she sells women's fashion stuff, a lot of accessories, like sunglasses and things. Okay? If we think about her operating model, she's got a website, she's based out of her home in South Bend, right? So we start thinking, where does she source from? Where does she get the stuff that she's selling from? And she has to make a huge decision. What stuff will I buy and pay for and hold in inventory at my house? And what stuff will I wait till somebody orders it on my website and I'll immediately place an order to my supplier out in California and I'll have them directly ship it to my customer, right? That decision of what things to hold more inventory of, or less inventory of, what ingredients or what flavorings to have a more inventory of, that's operations. That's an operating decision, right? Now I talk about how operations interfaces with everything else in the business, right? What happens? Why does she make a decision? I'm going to carry these things and have inventory and more options, but these things I will not carry an inventory. I'll order and they get shipped directly.
Yeah, so there are so many ways to determine that, because that may depend on the demand, that may depend on the shipping time, that
Yes.
depend on the cost as well.
And it's a big risk issue. Why is it a big risk issue? Inventory. Anything you're holding in inventory represents risk. Why? You paid for it, you're holding it, and if it never sells, if you never use it or sell it, there's a lot of retail businesses going out of business right now, right? The biggest thing that's putting them out of business is inventory, right? I bought all this inventory from my boutique, right? There's a fashion cycle. What was cool when I bought it is suddenly not cool, not the fashion thing it was, and I'm sitting there on all this inventory that I can't dump. Or I start selling it for $2. Some I paid $30, I'm selling it for $2. So with this lady, she's trying to manage her risk, but the minute she says, no, for these products, I'm not going to hold it in inventory, I get the order, I place the order. Actually, a lot of the time she has the order shipped to her, and then she ships it to the person. 2 weeks have gone by. If I make the customer wait 2 weeks, what have I just done?
Lowered their expectation.
I've reduced the amount of value they're getting from me. Would they have gotten more value if they could have it today? Maybe a little less value if they could have it in 2 days. But every day they wait, they're getting a little less value. So you're making these trade-off decisions between running the business smart so I'm not too much risk, but I got to deliver a level of service to my customers that want to give them more service. I want to have it right now, but I can't do that economically. So you start to see the tough decisions you have to make. Yeah.
So I just have a question. Actually, some add-on, regardless of how long the customer may wait to get them, always carry value. So depend on what they're selling. Because there are some other that when you order, you gotta wait for 6 months. So you know that, hey, this one I have to be patient. I gotta wait for 6 months because of the value, and then they have like a limited quantity that they manufacture.
Absolutely.
So,
However, she's not selling stuff people will wait 6 months for because there's 100 other places they could go and get it in less time. So you gotta also face the competitive reality. If it was something to die for and you can't get it anywhere else, and I'll wait 4 months. I'll wait. That's for most of the stuff you're selling. You're not selling to die for stuff where there's no competition, and so you start. What's this thing? Consistency. You go to a restaurant, okay? And after your experience there, I ask you to rate it. And you say, it's pretty good. I'd rate the quality an 8 on a 10-point scale. You go to the restaurant a few weeks later, and you rated it 10. You were delighted. It was a delightful experience. You go there a month or two later, and it's a 6. The next 2 times you go there, it's a 9. Then you go there, and it's a 3. But then the next couple times, it's a 9. Versus every time it's a 7. Which would the customer prefer? Sometimes getting a 9 or 10, but sometimes getting a 6 or 5, or always getting a 7? I'd rather always get the 7 than have the occasional 10, but the occasional. Customers want consistency. Your identity and your brand is tied to that consistency. What's the most brilliant thing about McDonald's? Not a lot of things, but it's not just the same menu. I've been in Moscow, Russia, in a McDonald's. I've been in Kansas City in a McDonald's. I've been in. It's not just they're all the same. What's amazing when you dig into operations is the burger is never overcooked. It's never undercooked. It's the incredible consistency. Now you might say the burger's not very good. That's a different issue. It's consistency. That's what will help establish your legitimacy in the marketplace. When you're not consistent in what you're delivering, I put sidewalks in, and 10 of them are beautiful sidewalks, but 2 of them are cracking 3 weeks later. There's my integrity, there's my reputation, you gotta have the consistency. So, let's come to the centerpiece of all of this, the operating model. What I want you to do in the coming weeks is to try to map your operating model. I'm a big believer when you're running a business in visualization, of being able to visually see things. So I knew a woman, and she started this business. Now they're everywhere, but she was like a pioneer. She was one of the first. And here's what she was doing. She had a business where you go in, and you select a piece of pottery, and you paint the pottery. And then you submit the pottery for firing, and you take it home, probably put it in the closet and never look at it again. And this was before Trump and his TV show. She called her business, You're Fired. Cute name. Okay? Now I want you to think about her operating model. And let's, very simplistically, try to map it. Okay? What's the first thing that happens in a day in the life of her business? A customer walks in the door, okay? Now, you've got to walk in the customer's shoes, not your shoes. When a customer walks in the door, and it's tragic how often you see this handled terribly. When a customer walks in the door, what are they thinking? Customer walks in her door, they're sitting there going,
Is what I want here.
you ever been to Chipotle? Chipotle Mexican food? Yeah? If I walked into Chipotle, I've heard Chipotle's pretty good. I walk in there, I've never been there before the first time. What do? I'm the customer. What do? I'm going to sit down, look for a menu, and wonder where the waitress is. They don't have waitresses and they don't serve you at the table. So they have a system where you get in a line and you go down a production line. You can actually watch them make your burrito, right? I didn't know that. And if you just assume I should figure it out, that's a pretty weird attitude to have towards customers. So when a customer walks in the door at this place, they're going,
What do I do now?
what do I do now? How does this work? Right? So what's the first step in your operating model? It's not just a customer greeting, it's a customer orientation. Okay? So I have staff that I've properly trained and I've given the right knowledge to, so they're not just friendly, but, hi, I'm Gladys, welcome to your fire. Have you been here before? Well, let me tell you how it works. Okay, now what is the next step in my operating? Well, now, could the customer say, thank you very much, and leave? Or the customer could stay. Okay, I think I'll give it a try today. Versus, thank you, I'll be back. Okay, the person stays, now what happens? Okay, so I have a step called pot selection. Not the stuff you smoke. So pot selection means an operating decision has to be made. What kind of operating decision? Well, I only have so much space. So do I want to have a pottery room where you can go in and pick a pot? Or do I want to have a big flat screen TV that you can page through, pick your pot, an employee runs out to the storage room in the back and gets that pot and brings it to you? Do you see what I'm saying? That's an operating decision. There isn't a right or wrong answer. You just got to make a decision. All right, person's got their pot. Now what? Sorry, I don't have a lot of space here, but so you could imagine me keep going here. Now what? No, we're not ready for them to sit down and paint. What kind of business is this? Is this fine art? Are we producing great works of art here? No. What are we doing here? Having fun. This is a key idea for all of you. Today, let's look at these stores that are shutting down. Why are they shutting down? Because of Amazon. Because people are buying so much stuff online, they're not going to brick and mortar stores anymore, right? Which brick and mortar stores are the ones going to survive? Well, those guys, yeah. I'll tell you one that I bet survives. Of course, these days we'll pick up tomorrow and it won't, but you ever heard of a store called Build-A-Bear? Say that again. Stores that create experiences. We've been selling teddy bears forever, but here this brilliant entrepreneur lady comes along and says, you don't just buy a teddy bear, you build the bear, you name the bear gets a birth certificate. Yeah.
It's a custom bear.
But the point is, and it's a clever custom bear, why? Because it feels custom when 95% of the bear is standard. But you're putting the eyes on or whatever, right? We live in an age, the 21st century is all about experiences. I'm not opening an Irish bar. I'm creating an Irish bar experience. How does that work? Well, the typical Irish bar does what? Paints the walls green, puts a shamrock up somewhere, sells Guinness and harp.
Some music.
Yeah, Gaelic music. No. At my Irish bar, when you walk in, and you've never been there before, everybody in the place turns and welcomes you. And then the bartender comes out, shakes your hand, welcomes you to Kelly's, gives you a sheet of music.
Oh boy.
At my bar, first time you come, you now have to sing an Irish shanty. And the minute you get 2 words out, what happens? Everybody sings with you. Now you're having an experience. You're not just sitting on a stool or at a table drinking beer. Experience. So what kind of experience? You said it's supposed to be a fun experience. All right, so where do I send you next?
To the wine bar.
I send you to the dressing room. And in the dressing room, you have to put on a smock. But what's I have on the back of each smock?
Okay.
Names of famous artists. Michelangelo, Picasso. So you put your Picasso smock on, right? Like the football player's name on the back. And what else do you need? We're not there yet. We're still in the dressing room. What? You need the little beret, right? One of those French artists, beret. So now I got the beret on and I got the smock on. And what have I put right as you walk out of the dressing room? A large mirror. Why? Because I want you to see how silly you look. Because the minute you see yourself, you'll laugh at yourself. You'll go, this is fun. This is going to be different. You're starting to have an experience. So then what? I send you to the paint selection station where you get your palette of paints and you get your brushes, right? I have the pot. You didn't have to carry the pot around. The pot's been, what did I do with the pot? The one you picked. I set it at your workstation. And do I want you picking a workstation way over here by yourself? No, this is about socializing and meeting people and laughing and so forth. So I assign you to your pot sitting at the workstation you're going to, right? So that you can meet new people and interact. And because it ain't about high art, it's about a social experience, right? And what else have I put in that workroom? Music and alcohol maybe, but that's for sure. But I've put a big picture window, big plate glass window. Why? Dee Dee's on a roll here, so I want the cars and the people going by to look in there and see people laughing and having fun and wearing bright berets and go, I don't know what they're doing, but I want to do it. Okay, so now what? So that's a step called work, station, assignment. All right, so now what? They do the work, right? They produce the work. And then what? Okay, I have to make a firing decision, don't I? Do I fire while they wait? Or do I fire between 8 and 10 at night after we close? That's an operating decision. One of the questions here is, did they finish or did they not finish? Because if they didn't finish but they're leaving, I have to have storage. Right?
Yeah.
So then I make the firing decision and so forth. What's a key step in this operating model? When does the customer pay? Do I want them to leave the pot, I'll fire it tonight, come back and pick it up tomorrow, and then you pay? No, because you'll never come back. You know, that was fun, but I don't want a piece of art. Right? So payment would be a step out here, right? Receive payment. Here's the point. Obviously, I've been very quick and simple here. But I want you, whatever you're doing, whether you're delivering a service or making a product, to map out your operating model. Map out your operating model. Why?
You save time. Because the person report you get over and over, so you don't have to like think, so it's not like automated. So we save time. It's more efficient. Okay, efficiency.
That's how you create consistency. So he's talking about a time benefit. She's talking about a consistency benefit.
Quality, it increases
A
quality.
quality benefit. Now watch what happens here, okay? Walk with me here for a second. One of my favorite entrepreneurs in the world is a guy I met, and we do work every summer in South Africa working with entrepreneurs from, really tough circumstances. And I had this guy we worked with. His name was Tondo. And Tondo had this vivacious personality. You just loved the guy the minute you meet him. And Tondo, in his head, had figured out a process where he would go to the river's edge, he would cut river reed, haul the river reed back to his glorified shack, and he had a production area out back, and he had a process for taking that river reed and turning it into fine stationery. So he's making paper. Okay? And Tondo had two, what over there are called casual laborers. These are guys that there's no payroll taxes. I pay them cash when I have cash, right? So they're sort of informal employees. And when they made paper, it was all in Tondo's head. He had to be there making the paper. With me? Okay. Now, we're over there, and we're helping Tondo. I want you to watch what happens here. Because in a parallel universe, same things will happen to you. We're over there, and we're helping Tondo. And the students I have with me are successful in... So Tondo makes this paper, but he sells it by the side of the road. He sells it at a craft market. There's a stall. But the students work with Tondo, and they get his paper into 3 retail stores. One's a gift shop, and the other 2 are stationery stores. And the gift shop is the real potential. Why? Because tourists come in, a lot of tourists go to South Africa. Tourists come in and they want something that's original and genuinely South African. And so he and he plays up that it's green. That it's a green product, right? So we leave. We come back to the States. And everybody's feeling pretty good. We've helped a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, but in Tondo's case, he's in 3 stores. Doesn't get much better than that. Say what? Whoa, no, he doesn't. We come back the next year, and Tondo is in deep doo-doo. 2 of the stores have dropped him, and he's hanging on by a thin thread with the 3rd store. Why?
You get to that level and you're still doing the business all by yourself and not going to have a
His capacity is constrained, so there's that capacity issue coming up. But more of the... That's true. And he makes all the paper. Just like the bib lady makes all the bibs. He has to be there all the time making the paper. He's got this vivacious personality. We want him out there in the stores, interacting with the store manager, keeping the relationship going. But the problem in the stores is that his paper stock either doesn't turn over, or because he's not there, he should have a table set up in the stores and do a demo or something. But he needs point of purchase material to tell a story, Tondo's story, you get pulled in. But he's not. He's back there making paper, right? Meanwhile, some of it stocks out, but he's not on top of it. So he's not there to restock the shelf. And so what's the store owner do? Gives the shelf space to somebody else. So here's what happened. Second time we worked with Tondo. The students, and these are not necessarily even business students, could be sociology students or social work students. We take a whole bunch of, we take the most motivated students. I don't care what the major in. But what I'm telling you is that students working with them, we have a team working with them. 3 American and 2 African students on the team. None of those students are engineers. None of those students are paper engineers. But what do you think the students did?
They wanted to learn the process.
They wanted to learn the process. He wasn't going to teach them the process because it's in his head. So they spent hours and hours and hours with Tondo making paper until they figured out what he does. Okay? Now, in the materials given you this morning, there are 2 free sheets of paper. One of them looks like this. Says process flow up at the top of it. That's it, right there. Everybody see this? Looks like this. Might be, yeah, it's right. What's in front of it? No, it should have come there.
In the front. In the front.
Everybody got this? What do you think you're looking at?
His process of making it?
This is Tondo's operating model. This is Tondo's operating model. As constructed by students that didn't know squat about paper making until they sat there with him and saw what he did. And what do you see? Well, look at the top. What do you notice at the top?
Definitions, symbols.
So there's some icons up there. A circle means it's a task that I have to do. An arrow means movement. A square means a quality control point. An upside down triangle is a storage point. And cleverly, they use a D for a delay or bottleneck. All right, what's the first thing he does? Cuts the reeds at the river, moves the reeds to his studio, which is his backyard. And what is that first step about then? You see how over to the left, the students, let's call that stage 1.
He's collecting his materials.
Raw material acquisition. I got to get the stuff to make the candles, right? So raw material acquisition. Okay, then what happens? Cook the reeds in caustic soda for 2.5 hours outside. Why do you see a delay or bottleneck there?
You gotta wait for it
only have one big pot. I can only cook so much at a time, no matter how much reed I've cut. And I gotta wait for it to cook. So there's nothing happening. It's a backup point, it's a bottleneck. All right, move the reeds inside for processing and rinse out the caustic soda in what? In his washing machine. So this is a guy that's using the equipment at hand. He's not out buying fancy production equipment, he's using his washing machine. All right, so then what? Move the pulp into drums. So you can see stage 2 is a raw material preparation stage, right? Then bleach, now we start making some paper. So bleach the pulp in the drums, move the pulp back into the washing machine, and we're getting multiple purposes out of that washing machine. Rinse the bleached pulp several times. Now we have what?
Quality control.
A quality control point. Let's test the alkaline level for quality. Then move the pulp into the Hollander beating machine. The only real piece of equipment the guy has is this Hollander beating machine. And you can follow the rest of this. Now, what do you think happens now that we've standardized and systematized our operating approach? Three things. And this is what's cool about it. This is what's cool about doing operations right. He can hire people to help him and they can see the process. He can be more of a supervisor than having to do it all himself, which frees up his time to go work with the stores and meet customers, right? But 3 things happen internally. Yeah?
You could also streamline the process.
So now he can get better, he can innovate, because now he sees what the process looks like exactly. It's not just doing it by gut or by instinct. So it opens the door for innovation. That's a great point. That's not one of my 3, so that's a 4th. But here, watch what happens. Is he now able to produce more paper in the same amount of time? So production output goes up. Capacity's growing. Okay? Is he able to thus produce a finished piece of paper at lower unit cost? And because it's systematized, do they screw up less and have to throw away more pulp or whatever? And so is the final piece of paper that's produced more consistent in terms of its thickness, its texture, whatever you're measuring quality by? What I just described to you is the magic of doing operations right, because it's a win-win-win thing. Production volume goes up, unit costs come down, but quality and quality consistency goes up. Most people think if you want to produce higher quality, you've got to spend more money. No, I'm spending less money to produce more quality, simply by standardizing the process and sticking to it. Now do you see why I'm pushing this whole notion of having your operating model well laid out, no matter what you're doing? If you're a counselor, I'd still map it out. So if we move forward with this, skip that. Map your process, inputs, throughputs, outputs, a day in the life. Identify where the bottlenecks are going to be. In a restaurant, where's your first bottleneck?
At the seating.
At the maitre d', right? People come in, they can only seat so many people at a time. Bottleneck. Now what happens? Those people are sitting out there in the lobby. Have you ever walked in a restaurant and there's a bunch of people sitting out there in the lobby? Do they look really happy and joyous? No, I just worked all week. And now I'm bringing my hard-earned pay to spend in your restaurant, and we're sitting around waiting. You know, and what stuns me is the entrepreneurs that get off on that. Like, look how good I am. I have people waiting. No, every minute they sit there, they're getting less value out of the experience. I got a bottleneck. What's my relief point on the bottleneck if I'm smart? I don't have the money right now to expand my capacity. What's my relief valve on the bottleneck at the maitre d' station? A what? A bar. I send them into the bar, and I have free hors d'oeuvres for people in the bar while they're waiting. Let me get better at that. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to hire a juggler. And the juggler, or a storyteller, entertains the people out there waiting. Now what happens? Your table's ready. Wait, I want to hear the rest of the story. What have you just done? You've turned a negative part of the experience into an added value part of the experience. But because you're systematically managing operations. I'm going to come back to this last idea in a bit. But when we start, no, come on. No, I'm not getting anything. When you start mapping your process, you're thinking about order entry, order processing and fulfillment, production, order delivery, customer billing and payment, after-sales service. So, you know the lady I mentioned who makes bibs, right? The students that are working with her right now have helped her get onto Etsy. Does everybody know what Etsy is? It's like a eBay, it's like a platform, but for people who make arts and crafts and stuff, where they'll sell your stuff through their website. So they've gotten her bibs on Etsy. Well, what do you think the first thing they had to do before they actually set up the Etsy site? Well, the first thing they did not before, they had to do those before things. When they first set up the Etsy site, right?
You have a profile.
Yeah, they have to do that. But she hadn't thought through the inventory issue, right? But more fundamental than that, what the team, the students did, was they had one of their buddies order a bib through the Etsy site to see what she would do to fulfill the order, right? And they're there with her to say, okay, what kind of envelope you putting it in? What kind of packaging are you putting around the bib? Are you putting like Ava's story, a little sheet of paper in there that's kind of a heart-moving story about bibs? What do you do with it? How do you label it? Are we then just walking down to the post office? Are we going to FedEx? Are we using UPS? What's our stamp? We work with them in terms of what's the best way to work with their system when we're producing. You got to walk through, and she hadn't thought of all these. She's just excited. Yeah, I'm selling online. That's going to be great. Well, yeah, except there's the whole order fulfillment thing here. And then what do you think happens? I can tell you, my significant other, probably 50% of what she ever orders from Amazon, she returns. That's not what I wanted. Do you think some people are going to return some bibs to her? Do you think she knows how she's going to handle that? She hadn't thought it through, hadn't got a system yet. So, you try to map all this out and effectively think about considerations. What's the lead time on getting raw materials? In her case, cloth, thread. She put some cool designs on the things. What's the lead time in terms of assembly and delivery time? What's the demand distribution? For some businesses, it may be fairly stable. But you saw with the Taco Bell, they have to adjust their operating model. Do you think there's more people brought on to staff between 10:30 and 2:30 than between 2:30 and 5:30? Yeah, you're going to have a bunch more lunch traffic, and I need 3 more employees, but only during that time period. Well, I've got to adjust employee hours to reflect the demand distribution over the day or over the week. You're trying to effectively, this is really an awkward system here, walk an order. We're trying to walk. Come on, walk. Walk. Which includes people, equipment, systems and technology, inventory levels. Here's a key one. If I got employees, do they have the right information at hand to do the task they're supposed to do? Which could include handling a customer complaint. Do they have the information at hand to properly respond to that customer? And, come on, baby. Well, that's interesting. So, information requirements. And then pre-purchase, customer contact points, customer purchase, customer support, fulfillment, walk an order. You've got to get into the nitty-gritty. You've got to focus on the detail. You've got to sweat the details when it comes to operations. Is this making sense? This is how you need to think about it, no matter what you're doing. And please, just wants me to be nice to him. So here's an operating model that we created for a job placement service, where you get temp work or whatever, step, time, over time. Now, come on. Here's one of the most powerful ideas I can share with you. Very, very, very cool idea. If I buy a Subway franchise, which goes for how much you think? About 400 today for a Subway franchise. McDonald's about $1.5 million. If I buy a Subway franchise, what do I get? I get the name, I get the marketing support, I get a what? We call it a turnkey system. What does Subway tell me? Where to buy my bread. What kind of bread to buy. So where I source from, right? What time in the morning to cook the bread. Bake the bread, sorry. To bake the bread, right? Do they tell me how to slice the bread? Oh yeah, oh yeah. Do they, when I make a tuna sub, do they have the exact ingredients, the exact quantity that goes into each one? Do they have a step-by-step procedure for how a sub is made and in what order? Have they put the tomatoes here and the lettuce there and it's never any different?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And what do they get for that? They get consistency. They get $400,000, yeah. But that's the end game. That's the sign of success. But what they get is the sub. You know what you're getting when you get a Subway tuna sub. They get incredible consistency. They're able to do it faster. so they can produce more subs, especially at peak times. They get the win, win, win. So here's my message, and I think this is a super cool idea. Run your business like it's a franchise, even if it's not a franchise. Use that same kind of mentality, and you will reap the benefits. To the customer, maybe it's a fun experience, but what you're running is a systematic approach to producing that fun experience. So, it begs another question. How many of you have ever been in a play? About everybody. I mean, you could have been the baby Jesus in the Christmas play. Right? If you go to a play and you're in the audience, what do you see on the stage? You see actors. Actors in costumes. And they're standing at particular places on that stage. Right? And you see props. Right? Okay. What do you not see? There's some prop guys in the back between acts that move props on. I never see those guys. There's a lighting person up there. Never see the lighting person.
Copies of the script.
I don't see copies of the script, but is there a makeup artist back there that makes up the people?
You don't see them on
Never see that person. There could be musicians. There could be a curtain guy. Right? Okay. Those things are happening where?
Backstage.
Backstage. What I want you to think about is that for some of your businesses, you may actually want to think about two operating models. The front stage operating model and the backstage operating model. What did I map out here?
front stage.
Front stage, the customer facing, the customer interacting part of my operating model. What are the things people will never see? Well, they don't see how we order inventory. They don't see how we clean up the place at the end of the day. There are a lot of things they don't see, right? Everything the customer sees needs to be managed that way. If the customer sees a receptionist, then the receptionist is no longer a receptionist. They're an integral part of your operating model and how they're dressed and how courteous they are and how professional they are. That's all front stage now. Because the customer's seeing it, right? Does the customer see an invoice?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and when you mistakenly overcharge them by $10, what's the customer conclude? Well, it'd be nice if they just thought, well, he made an honest mistake. Right? But a lot of customers will go, these people routinely rip people off. They read between the lines. They read into it. Right? You're managing invoice preparation as a front stage operation. People can see it. So the idea here is that some of your businesses, one operating model will capture everything. Others, though, you may want to distinguish front stage and backstage and manage them accordingly. Okay? I hope you're getting cool ideas about your own approach. Let's take a little break. Two businesses right next door to each other. Okay? One is Agatha's hair salon. The other is Pete's paint store. Okay? What have I just created? Hair salon is a service business. Selling cans of paint, you're selling a product. Okay, right next door to each other. Service business, product business. An hour of time goes by, and neither one had any sales, no customers. Which one is more adversely affected? How many say the paint store? How many say the hair salon? Just one? Two? Why the paint store?
Because of the cost.
Good.
The product is more expensive. So, and they're more affected, they're not making sense compared to
Okay. Interesting answer. Yes?
Because they already purchased.
Okay, so you've got the money tied up in the inventory. Is that what you're going to say?
That's your bottom.
Well, I think this is like the week you should go to Las Vegas. Because you're right on everything.
So I get what you guys are saying about the cans of paint. But here goes. This is my theory. In one day, I can sell 1,000 cans of paint and be out the black. But as a hairdresser, if I don't get people in my chair, how do I make money?
And an hour goes by and I didn't sell any cans of paint. But can I sell twice as many cans of paint next hour? Hour goes by and my hair salon has 4 chairs. Nobody in any of the chairs. Can I resell those chairs twice as many next hour? That's revenue lost forever. You can't get that back. So the paint store was not necessarily as adversely affected as the service business. Because the paint store inventory, even though it costs money, is kind of a release valve, right? What's a toy store, right? Does a toy store pretty much sell evenly across the 12 months of the year? Or does 75% of all the sales in the whole year come at Christmas time, right? So what do? In July, they build their inventories way down. In October, they're starting to build up their inventories, right? But if you're a service business, you don't have inventory. You got people. And think about this. I have a guy do my taxes every year. Italian guy in New Jersey. I've never been audited. He's a good guy. What's his accounting practice like in March and April? It's insane. He's got 10 CPAs and bookkeepers going full out 13, 14 hours a day. What's it like in the exact same, an accounting service, it's a service business, right? What's it like in the same accounting business in August? Right? Do you want to get rid of all those talented CPAs that are working for you? How do you deal with it? It's not just adjusting inventory down or up. Well, there's things you can do, but you see the problem. Now, this gets to understanding the core nature of services. And the core nature of services is what?
Seasonal.
No. Here's a product. I sell this product, right? Oh, it's a heavy sucker. I sell this product, okay? I can touch it. I can feel it. I can sit on it and see how comfortable it is, right? Because it's tangible. Services are intangible. You can't taste them, smell them, see them. They're intangible. And that's why you can't hold them in inventory, because they're intangible. Well, this leads to a bunch of important management issues. Let's think about services. So, I give Ruben a haircut, okay? And I give Tim a haircut. In fact, they both want the same style, so I give them exactly the same haircut, right? It's not like if I was giving them exactly the same chair. I'm giving them exactly the same haircut. Are they exactly the same? No, they are not. Why?
Because you're not exactly the same.
Well, even if I'm a machine,
Like
Their hair is different.
his hair is thicker than his hair. His hair is curlier than his hair. He has this odd bump right here on his head. His, you'd never notice it, but his left ear is slightly higher than his right ear. I have to do what when I cut their two heads?
Adjust.
Customize what I'm doing. Even when I'm selling them the exact same thing, there's a key characteristic of services. There's a level of customization involved. If I'm giving massages, I got to custom. If I'm giving counseling, although those are services, I got to adjust. Yeah.
I'm a barber, and speaking on what you said, this is how, over the years, this is how I put it. When a person gets in the chair, I turn the light switch on. When the person gets out the chair, I turn the light switch on.
Turn the light switch on, turn the light switch off.
Off, because everybody is customized.
Everybody's customized. Now, let's stay with your barbershop, right? If everyone's customized, once you introduce, think about the difference between producing standard chairs, every chair is the same, versus there's some level of customization. The minute you introduce customization, what happens? It takes more time to do it. You can't become machine-like and just pump out the chairs or the candles or whatever if you automated everything. It takes more time. So here's the problem with service businesses. It's hard to get economies in scale in operations. If he cuts 100 heads versus 2 heads, he's not seeing a big reduction in his unit costs. You know, if we take supercuts, right, and they do time and motion studies, and they only have 5 kind of cuts they do, and we just pump more people through there in less time, it's a 10-minute haircut, right?
They can't even get it right.
And the issue of consistency and quality comes into play. But the point is, they maybe get a little bit of economies. If you can do higher volumes of chairs, your unit costs start to come down significantly. Your procurement costs, your production efficiencies. It's harder with a service business. Okay. I'm going to give Dee Dee some counseling. Okay? I'm going to give her some counseling. I'm going to give Zelda a massage. That's my business. With service businesses, the customer often becomes part of the service. When I buy a TV, a product, I don't become part of the TV. But because the service is being done to me, for me, the customer becomes part of the service. There's a difference. And it's not just that. If I'm selling a service, okay, I buy this chair, I buy a TV. When do I consume it? Over the next 5 years. right? With a service, we have something we call simultaneous production and consumption. It's being consumed as it's being produced. So you start to see some of the differences with services, selling services. We haven't gotten to the biggest one yet. What's the biggest difference when you're selling a service? Well, but customer service, you gotta be customer service, gotta be good even in a product business. Yes, ma'am.
With service, for example, I sell HR. So I sell different types or different streams of services, if you will. I have two clients. I have the same type of contract, but what I have to do or provide the services I can provide for one is different than the other.
Well, I want to build on that idea. But the issue here is more fundamental. Remember that tax guy I use in New Jersey? Every year I send him all my stuff, and he sends me back a completed return. In fact, he sends me a copy of completed return because he's sent it off electronically. I get the completed return. What's my problem? I'm the customer. What's my problem?
Trust him. Trust.
Trust is very important, especially with services.
You don't see the process? You only get the end quality?
Yes, I only get the what?
The end quality?
The end. Whoa, 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 whoa. What was that word you used?
Quality.
Quality. How do you judge the quality of an intangible?
He hasn't been audited.
How do I judge the quality of that tax return he prepared for me? Right? And so what do people do? Well, it looks like I'm getting a refund this year. Okay? But wait a minute. You know, this was a COVID year. I bet that guy's been real busy. I wonder if he spent as much time on my return as usual. I know I'm getting money back, but I don't know if I could be getting more. Here's the problem. Customers have a hard time judging quality of a service. With a chair, I can feel how sturdy it is. I can sit it and feel how comfortable it is. But with a service, how do I judge the quality? So what do customers do? How do you judge the quality of this presentation? This is a service. I'm delivering a service.
Shop around?
It's hard to do. I mean, two of you could walk out the door and one of you go, man, Maura sucked. And the other one, that's great.
Well, they typically judge off how it makes them feel.
Well, here's what they do. Here's what they do. Lisa, how you doing, Lisa? Lisa calls a package delivery service because she's got to get a package out to her cousin in Idaho. Okay? The driver shows up, pick up her package. He's driving a van that's got dents, kind of beat up, got graffiti painted on it. He gets out of the van, and he's got one of those wife-beater kind of t-shirts with his armpits exposed, big old, with stains on it, a big old beer gut, right? He's got a tattoo about his mama on this arm and some disgusting tattoo on this arm. He smells like he bathed about 2 months ago, and he says, "Lady, where's the package?" What do you say?
I don't know.
You get the wrong house. I didn't call anybody about a package. Wait a minute. What if I told you, and I can show you tangible evidence, that that package delivery company has the best on-time record in the business in terms of getting packages where they need to go? that package delivery service loses fewer packages than anybody in the industry. Right? What's she going to say? I don't know, she will not. I don't care. I look at that truck, I look at that driver. That's what customers do. They look for cues. They look for cues. If you got hair piling up on the floor from 3 haircuts ago, when I sit in the chair, I don't care how great you are as a barber, I'm judging your quality by the cleanliness of the place, right? I look for cues. And so one of the most powerful ideas I can share with you is when you're selling services, or if you have a product business but there's a service component of what you do, you need to manage the evidence. Manage the evidence.
Testimonials?
No. The evidence. I'll get to testimonials. That's an interesting point. The cues the customer looks at. You ever go to a doctor's office? Yes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, doctors are inherently, I'm a single mom, I've got 3 kids, one of them's sick, and I got to get to work, but I got a medical appointment at 8 o'clock. Doctors are notoriously not especially customer focused, meaning they'll see you when they feel like seeing you, right? So now you have to wait. I'm in a doctor's office and I'm waiting. I'm sitting at a chair, table in front of me, and I'm waiting. And I'm looking at that person across the room going, what's she got? I don't want to get it. So now I'm looking down. And I'm looking down, and there's magazines on the table. And there, amongst the magazines, is a copy of People magazine from 2009. What do I start thinking?
They're not up to date.
How up to date is this place? Medicine's changing fast. How up to date is this doctor? I start making judgments based on the evidence, on the things I see. Why do you think Federal Express pays a ridiculous amount of money to wash their trucks every 2 weeks? You never see the plane deliver the package. You never see all the backstage stuff, but you see the trucks. You judge the quality. If FedEx trucks were notoriously dirty and muddy and not well kept, you judge the quality of the business. You ever run into a FedEx driver, like in an elevator or somewhere? They're moving fast, but they're always courteous. And you'll always notice they have a uniform on that's pressed and clean. Even if they're wearing shorts in the summer, they're pressed and clean. Why?
First impression.
Because they're managing the evidence of the service being delivered. Make sense? Manage the evidence. You get on a plane and you put the tray top table down and it's filthy, you may wonder how they do maintenance on their engines. So, I'm in Florida, and I have to fly to Chicago tomorrow, okay? I have to fly to Chicago. So, tomorrow I go to the airport, ridiculously long wait, go through security, get on the plane, have to make a connection, get on the next plane. I get to Chicago, and I arrived there at O'Hare Airport at around 7:15 at night. And by the time I get to the hotel, it's like 8 o'clock, okay? And I go in and I put my stuff in my hotel room, and I go out to grab a bite of dinner. find some place down the street, have some dinner. I go back to my hotel room about 9:30. I walk into my hotel room, and there, on the bed, on the pillow, is a mint candy. And I say to myself, there's a mint on my pillow. I swear to God, there was no mint there when I checked in. Why is there a mint on my pillow? It's not just that somebody's been in the room, they're telling me somebody's been in my room. They're telling me, Mike, you've been looked after. We came in, and you might not notice we did a quick vacuum. You might not notice we freshened your towels. What will you notice? The mint, because the mint is evidence. Or they turn down the bed. They think I'm stupid, I don't know how to turn down my own bed? No. They're trying to manage the evidence and say, Mike, you've been taken care of. You've been looked after. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get creative, entrepreneurial in how you manage the evidence. I have a team right now working with a young lady who has a cleaning business. And what's the problem with the cleaning business? I have a person who cleans my house. What's the problem with the cleaning service? Well, there's COVID issues, but there's scaling issues, right? The problem is I'm never there when she cleans, right? So I don't know unless I could take the time, I'm not going to look under the beds to see if she dusted, right? She's on a service, right? So what do you think she's now doing? Huh? Showing evidence how?
Maybe by leaving certain things in certain places that you know you'll normally look for that are clean.
Right?
Maybe
Or?
taking videos of the fact that you cleaning your house.
Scents. She uses pleasant smelling cleaning.
Maybe there's a chart that has her signature and the time she finished.
Ah. She leaves a little card now. She wasn't doing this before. Clara, or whoever the person's name that came that day, was privileged to clean your house today. And always there's a little note like, we don't normally do blinds. You might want to have your blinds done next time. Or if you prefer a particular floor product, you need to, there's a checkbox. There's a, what happens when you go to a quick change oil place? You ever go to a quick change oil place and they change your oil in like 15 minutes and then you get back in your car and you pay the money and you go, you really changed my oil? That's pretty fast. Well, no. The guy walks up to me and shows me the oil filter. Right? That's managing the evidence. Right? Oh, yeah, it's all gunky and dirty. And then you got it. So there must be a new one on the car. I'm not going to get under there and look, but managing. They give me a report card on my car that shows what my tire pressure now is, that the windshield wiper fluid has been replaced, that the transmission fluid has been checked, that the brake fluid has been checked. Manage the evidence. And the other side of the equation is to tangibilize the intangible. Think of a service that we tend to buy because we have to, but like insurance, right? You buy insurance, you pay each month, and nothing happens. You just keep paying each month, nothing happens. And then something bad happens, and maybe you get taken care of, maybe you don't, right? So it's easy to justify underinsuring, right? When I sell, most of my life when I buy insurance of any sort, they mail me a policy, most of which is written in such small letters that and even if I could read it, I'm not gonna read it, right? But I figure it's probably important enough, so I shove it in a drawer somewhere, right? No. When I sell insurance policies, I deliver your policy to you, but I put it in a nice leather binder. And in gold embossed letters, I put the Okla Family Insurance Program. What have I just done? Given you a tangibilized the intangible thing. And so there's an old adage that if you're selling tangibles, emphasize the intangibles. We sell cars, what do we emphasize? It'll make you feel youthful. It'll make you feel adventure. And if I'm selling intangibles, then I try to sell the tangible kinds of things that you get from it. So that's does that give you some ideas about managing your service and clever things you might be able to do to manage the evidence and tangibilize the intangible? Come on, baby. Intangibles. So, one last idea here. And it's this principle that I refer to as moments of truth. A moment of truth, you're going to laugh at this, but a moment of truth is a pregnant moment of customer interface. A pregnant moment of customer interface. Why do I call it pregnant? Because it's ripe for value creation. So think about the points of customer interface when you go to a restaurant. Okay? I like to ask people, groups like yourselves, in a restaurant experience, how many moments of truth are there? And the average group will come up with about 8. Well, when you're greeted by the maitre d', that's a moment of truth. When you're seated and your drink order is taken, that's a moment of truth. When the food is actually put on the table and how it's displayed on the plate is a moment of truth. When you get your bill, that's a moment of truth.
Even the decorations, though.
Well, that's the point. Yes, go ahead.
If you have a service that's a little bit different from that, with like an appointment reminder, did they get an email, be a moment of truth?
Yes, it would be. And that's my point. If you think more thoroughly, if you focus on the details, the typical restaurant experience has 36 or 37, just not. Moments of truth. I pull my car into the parking lot, and the parking lot is strewn with trash. Is that a moment of truth?
Oh, yeah.
As I'm getting out of my car, a rat scampers across my feet. What am I thinking? I'm thinking, I bet that rat just had dinner in the kitchen of this place. That's a moment of truth. I drive by the business, it's got a neon sign, and 2 of the letters are burnt out. I judge the place by that. If they're not that attentive to the bright sign that everybody sees, how attentive are they to my meal? Here's a key moment of truth. You go to the bathroom, right? And so we want to map these moments of truth out. Now, let's take it, and I said it's a pregnant moment of truth, meaning it's ripe for doing creative things. So, now, for the ladies present, obviously a women's restroom is different than a men's. In the men's, you'll find there's a stall or two, but there are urinals, and the urinals get most of the business. In my restaurant, we put the front of the sports page of today's newspaper on the wall over the urinal. Or we put a TV screen that's showing a football game over the urinal. If I'm reading the sports page or looking at the TV screen, what am I not looking at? The filthy floor, or whether the trash has been entered. I'm not looking at those things. You've just taken a negative moment of truth and actually enhanced my whole value experience. And that's the key, to identify the moments of truth, map them out, and ask yourself, where in this equation am I not delivering the kind of value I might? How can I enhance this? How can I differentiate myself? How can I add value in terms of those moments of truth? So, when people come into my barbershop, right, most of the time they don't walk straight to the chair. They have to wait a little while. Well, that waiting period is a moment of truth, right? So what do I do to manage it? To enhance value while they're sitting there. I'll give you an example. I have a daughter in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I go to visit her. And the flying experience these days is not a pleasant one. And I have just visited her, and I'm returning my car to the Avis car rental place. And it's August. And if you've ever been in Charlotte, North Carolina in August, it's just unpleasant. It's muggy. It's just very hot. And I'm anxious because I got to turn the car in. I got to get on a bus and go up to the terminal. I got to go through security. I got to don't know how long that line's going to be. I'm worried about the flight because if it doesn't take off on time, I'll miss my connection in Atlanta. And so I got a lot of anxiety going on, right? And I pull my car in, and it's hotter than hell outside. And what happens? Well, first of all, the minute I open my door, there's an employee there with a remote reader. So and he looks at the car, gives me my receipt on the spot. So I don't have to go inside. That's managing operations, but it's managing a moment of truth. The moment your car gets turned in. Am I supposed to write down the mileage and take this in and turn in the keys? Or no, the guy's right there. Then I get to the bus stop, waiting for the van to come take me. And I'm like, come on, where's the bus? Let's go, come on. And I turn, and they put a cooler there in the bus stop, full of ice, soft drinks, and bottles of water. I get a bottle of water, the bus comes up, go. That negative moment of truth, waiting at the bus stop, has just been made a little better because of the thoughtful notion of it doesn't cost them much to have a thing out there with some ice and water in it, right? But they've enhanced the experience. I'll give you my favorite example. My favorite example of this is in South Africa. Now, I've just had the privilege over my life to have met so many amazing entrepreneurs. And the history of South Africa in the 20th century is an ugly history because for years they had this regimented system of apartheid. And apartheid basically meant if you were a person of color and they have a lot of different colors there. But especially if you were a person who was black, it wasn't just that you couldn't vote. There were jobs you couldn't have. You couldn't travel anywhere you wanted to in the country. They had something called pass laws. You weren't allowed to own a bar or a place that had alcohol. So they had all this terrible legislation, and they had outlawed it. They got rid of apartheid. And they had freed Nelson Mandela, and they had scheduled free and fair elections. Well, at the time, because of the ugliness of apartheid, the world had imposed onerous economic sanctions on South Africa. And the US, of all the countries, was the most severe. If you wanted a Japanese copier, you could get one. You wanted anything American, you could not. So we were pretty strict on our, and it was hard to break that, to get around it. This lady, and now this is, everybody does it. This lady was a pioneer. She says, we're free. Sanctions are going to go away very soon. People are going to come back. South Africa is a beautiful country. Tourists are going to come back from America, from Europe, the Far East. And here's my idea. So in sub-Saharan Africa, including South Africa, there's for decades been this slow movement from rural areas to the cities. And cities can be expensive to live in, so I'm poor, I migrate to the city, and what do? I can't afford rent, so I go to some abandoned, non-arable land, and I build a shack out of timber and metal, and in 10 years, there's 1.5 million people living there, and roads have been put in. And these are called townships. They're shanty towns. This lady says, the tourists are coming back, and I'm starting a business, and it'll be township tours. We'll take the tourists out into these shanty towns and show them around. That's like saying, you're going on vacation this summer? We'll take you to the hood in Detroit, and you'll die. Right? People thought this was stupid. Tourists spending good money going to go take a tour of the shanty towns. Well, they were wrong, and she was right. From the get-go, she was oversold. She had 2 vans, and then she had 3 vans. But here's what happened. It was really interesting. It tells you about what a brilliant entrepreneur she was. She would have a van that would have 16 people in it, and she'd be given a tour of the township. It would tell the history, and this is where a famous massacre happened, or this is where Nelson Mandela spoke, or, right? And it was all very interesting, and she mapped it out, exactly what she says, and how the tour works, and so forth. Very professional. But what she had built into the tour was, at about the midpoint, the van stops, you get out of the van, and you go into this little place, not much to look at, and they will serve you a traditional African meal. Well, van pulls up, says, all right, everybody, we're going to have a traditional African meal now. Just get off the van and we'll go on inside here. And people go, I'm not getting off. I'm not getting out of the van. Just keep moving. I mean, I'm enjoying this, but keep moving. They didn't want to get out. So what is this? A moment of truth. So what did she do to turn that moment into net value creation? What she did was she took the cook and wait staff in this little restaurant and had them come out to the street. As the van pulled up, they're out there, and they're dancing, and they're singing. And now what do the tourists want? They want to dance with them. They want to learn the dance. They want to sing the song. These are the people you're singing, and they're going to prepare your meal. Now you've taken a negative moment and turned it into net value creation. Identify the moments of truth, manage the moments of truth. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm going to shift gears because we don't have a whole lot of time, but we have some time for the little celebration. I want to talk, can you switch out the two? I want to talk, thank you, about pricing. Okay? A few minutes on pricing?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you think about price, when you set a price, what are you doing? You are. I'm going to stress that theme. But technically, what are you doing when you set a price?
Understanding.
You are producing a number, right? $9.95. So you are quantifying something. You are producing a number. Look at pricing that way. I'm trying to set a number. And what should that number say? Okay? Now, I've seen a person who owned a writing implement, a pen. And it had a brand name on it, Mont Blanc. And the pen sold for $300. Right? Now, I've bought a pen before that had the letters BIC on it, and I paid 30 cents for that pen. Those are two prices, 30 cents, $300, right? They're both good prices for what they sell, right? What are the big people trying to say by charging 30 cents? This is a decent writing implement, but it's disposable. Use it, throw it away. What is the guy selling a $300 pen saying with his price? This isn't just a writing implement. It's a status statement. It's a piece of art. It's something else. It's not a functional, disposable writing implement. So to begin with, do you see how price projects you? Price projects a value proposition. Price projects your brand, what it stands for. Why do people who come from disadvantaged circumstances routinely initially set their prices too low? Because they're just trying to get their name out there, because they think they have to or they won't get sales, and they need the sales because they don't have any sales, right? And maybe there's even more operating, like, yeah, if I'm poor, I know what I would pay, I know what I could pay, right? Were any of these thoughts going through the mindset of Mr. Schultz at Starbucks when he launched the business and said, I'm going to charge $4 for a cup of coffee? No. What's he thinking?
Basically,
Experience.
basically selling an experience.
I'm selling
An experience.
a $4 experience. Many people would argue you can get a better cup of coffee for $1 at McDonald's. But does that lead Starbucks to lower their price? No. They're making a statement of value when they set that price. And what's most interesting about Starbucks is they did it in an old mature industry. Not some high-tech new thing, but coffee. And what's even more interesting about getting away with a $4 price is many of you may assume because of all this emphasis these days on coffee, that coffee consumption is up. Coffee consumption globally is down and has been for decades as people drink bottled water and 16 kinds of Diet Coke and whatever. Normally when demand is down, you have to lower your price. They were unreasonable. Remember we started the whole thing with, be a little unreasonable? They're saying, demand's down, so we're going to jack price up. That seems crazy. Not so kind of clever like a fox kind of thing. So this is the beginning point of how you should see price. And there's a law in pricing. So my first message to you is, and some of you you will disagree, and you may be very right. But for most of you, I would tell you whatever you're charging, you're not charging enough. 2, here's the law I was going to talk about. It is always easier to lower price than to raise price. What's that tell you?
Start high.
Start high. Start high. Because once you lower it, it's very difficult to jack it back up. Yes?
Okay, so when you think about price right now, you talked about adding our own, fair, own value. But does it make sense to look at industry standards?
I'm going to show you what to look at. It does make sense to look at industry standards. But the key then is when you're setting price, you're trying to put a number on how much value customers are getting, which has nothing to do with what your costs are. I need a haircut today. I'd like you to trim it up. I'd like it to just cover the tops of my ears all around. What are you going to charge me for that? 25 bucks, right? Are there places I could go that would charge me $75 for that haircut?
Absolutely.
Are there places I could go that will charge me $12? Right? The 25 probably has very little to do with the cost of delivering the haircut. It's more a statement of what?
Reflection of me.
Yeah.
So, let me, and I understand that, but I also, based on the economy. So,
Yes.
So as a barber, anytime the services, like, delivering a service such as I do, we are a measuring stick for the economy because it's basically a luxury.
Right.
So when the recession was happening in 08, I saw something happen. I didn't know what it was. So I started having people that had regular jobs ask me for a haircut for the person in their family until the next paycheck. So what I did when I started seeing that, I lowered my prices.
Right.
Because I was adjusting to how the economy is.
Yeah, because the economy is a supply and demand issue. Demand is down significantly. There's still just as many barbershops. The supply is still what it was. Price is forced down.
My clientele increased when I did that.
Yeah, and what does all of this depend on in his case? How he wants to position himself in the marketplace, and who he is targeting. There are different market segments, right? So, high-end senior executives who will pay $75 for a haircut are not your target market, at least not right now, right? And loyalty from a neighborhood clientele may be more of your current target audience. So, and I'm going to come to this point about market segmentation. What I want you to see then is that price is one of the most flexible tools in your toolkit. It is more than your cost. It is more than one decision. It's a statement of value. It's a lot harder to change your product or to change the distribution channel you're selling through than to change your price. Think about my point. Easier to lower than to raise. Now, my price, I sell something, whatever it is, my price is $150, okay? Selling a tool or some device, my price is $150. Selling speakers, I don't know. I'm not getting a lot of sales. Sales are down. I'm having a tough time. I'm thinking about lowering my price to $100, right? What's the problem with that?
People will enjoy the price based on the quality of the sale.
It may give a different message in terms of my quality, right? Let's take that point for a second. What do all of us do, even though we have no evidence to support it? You go in to buy a bedside clock, radio clock alarm for your bedroom, right? You get to the store, and there are 9 options, 9 different styles of radios. What do you immediately do? You start comparing, but you make an assumption for which you have no evidence, and that is the one with the highest price is probably a better quality radio than the one that's the lower price. Even though there may be no difference and no evidence, customers judge quality. They use price as an indicator of quality. So that could be a problem, right? But back to my example. If I lower it to 100 from 150, right? And then things start to pick up, how easy is it to raise it back to 150? It's very difficult. Very difficult to get away with it. Wait a minute. Yeah.
But what if, like, you do a sale?
Yes. The what if is what I'm always looking for. The what if is the magic of entrepreneurship.
You're not necessarily going there, but this week we're doing a sale and they're $100 this week.
Yes. Or, I'll tell you what. During October and November, we're offering a $50 rebate. And you get the rebate on the spot. Right? What happens on December 1st? The price is still $150. It never changed from being $150. So on December 1st, it goes back to $150. But it's not like I jacked up price, it just means the rebate expired. You see what I'm saying? Set the price more consistent with the value you're delivering, but if you need flexibility, come up with creative ways to adjust price, but not permanently. That's a key to how you think about pricing in business today. So, and I mentioned the parts of a cow earlier today, but, you know, there's a bar in Chicago, I don't know if it's still there or not, but they had like 50 kinds of beer. And they ran the bar like a stock market, meaning the price of Budweiser at 9 o'clock might be different than it was at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock based on nightly demand. Nobody's buying Heineken, price comes down tonight. Nobody said you can't do that. I'm washing cars. Okay? I'm washing cars and we charge $20 for car wash, right? No. Gerald drives a big car. I charge a different price for big cars and small cars. Nobody said I can't do that. When you go to the bowling alley, how do they charge for a game of bowling? Per game. I think a game is 10 frames and you get 2 rolls. And so whatever that price is, it's a flat fee per game, right? No. I'm opening a bowling alley and I'm going to charge based on how many pins you knock down.
You could if you want, but.
Now here's the key. The minute I said I'm going to charge based on how many pins you knock down, a bunch of you start going, that's really stupid, Mike. That's not a good idea. Don't do that. Don't kill clever ideas just because the knee-jerk reaction is, it'll never work. Let me hang on that idea. Let me adapt it. Let me adjust it. Let me play with it. And I may come up with a very effective way to price that's different than the way it's done. My point is, you don't have to price like everybody else does. Be creative. Try to get to value. So, let me share some ideas with you. Come on. Most common approach to pricing in businesses, and I see this, I'll have this exact discussion with some of our entrepreneurs, and then I'll go see them the next week, and they want to talk about pricing, and all they're talking about is their unit costs. Well, it costs me this much to make a cake, right? This is the natural way to think, and it's not the right way to think. But cost plus pricing is pervasive. By cost plus, I mean figure out your cost per unit, add a margin or a markup, and there's your price. The problem with it is it puts handcuffs on you. It takes all the creativity out of pricing. And most importantly, you're probably leaving money on the table that you could be making. So, why is it so popular?
Easy.
It's easy and it's logical. I do want to cover my costs. I do want to make a markup, right? But that's never going to get you to be Starbucks at $4 a cup of coffee because there's no connection there. So, I want to encourage you to not rely on a cost-plus approach. And instead, the alternative to cost-plus pricing is value-based pricing. Okay? Now, to talk about value-based, we have to talk about where value comes from. And I don't want to get too academic here, but value has 2 primary sources. Something we call value in use and value in exchange. If I asked the typical person, does a Bible have more value than a 6-pack of beer? Well, it does depend on who I ask. But a lot of people would say, oh no, the Bible is worth much more. But in fact, if I go into the marketplace, I may find that the 6-pack of beer actually has a higher price on it than the Bible, suggesting the marketplace places a higher value on the beer than on the Bible. That's true because of something called value in exchange. Value in exchange is about supply and demand. So your price is driven by how many people are willing and able to buy it at a point in time and how many people are willing and able to sell at a point in time. Those two forces, supply and demand and competition, come together and say, well, the going price right now on a cup of coffee is $1.25, right? And so in the recession, you're adjusting price downward because you're reacting to supply and demand conditions, okay? And that is an important determination of value. More people want something, you jack up the price, right? I'm a car rental agency, and I'm renting cars. No, I'm renting cars in February and March in Daytona Beach. Well, what happens in February and March in Daytona Beach? The Daytona 500 and college spring break. Thousands of people come. The price of I have a place down there, and I can tell you the price of a car at the typical place in Daytona Beach in September is about $22 a day, right? The exact same car in February is $90 a day. Same car, same staff, no difference in costs, but why are they charging $92 a day? Because demand is peaks, and that justifies me. Supply and demand drives the price up. I had experience many years ago with a company that used to be a very interesting company. I don't think it's as interesting today, but the company was AT&T. I did some work for them as a consultant. And they used a cost-plus approach to pricing. This is back when they were the phone company. So you had New England Bell and Illinois Bell, and that was all AT&T. And they made the phones, and they had the long line wire, everything was AT&T. Well, AT&T, and back in those days, cell phones weren't around, and AT&T would sell telephones. So when you moved to an apartment or home, you get a telephone. And it was a standard box sort of telephone. Punch the buttons. And they decided to introduce a Mickey Mouse telephone. Okay? And if you use their normal pricing formula, which was cost plus 200%, well, the cost of the phone was about $15 to make it and sell it. Add 200%, you'd be charging $45 for the phone. We talked to them about value. And we looked at the other side of value, which is value in use. Apart from the forces of supply and demand, let's look at person's subjective estimation of value. How much value do you get out of this presentation versus do you get? Well, every customer gets a different amount of value. Let's look at that, okay? And when we started looking at value considerations, what price do you think we arrived at?
$20.
No, the going price using the normal formula would have been $45 for the Mickey Mouse designer phone. $135.
Oh,
135. Why? Because customers, these became popular. It was cool to have the first Mickey Mouse phone. It was a showpiece that people saw more value. It wasn't just a device to punch buttons and make a phone call. It was a cool, fun, fashionable thing. So there are other sources of value in the mind of the customer. They'll pay $135. Value-based. Value-based. So, when you set prices, there are 5 considerations. What's the first one? the things outside the box are the considerations. Costs. I'm not telling you to ignore cost. All I'm telling you is the costs tell you what you have to charge to break even. Okay? That's important to know, but it's the beginning point in setting your price. I do want to know what price I have to charge to cover my cost. Is that helpful to start there? Yes, but it's not the be-all, end-all. For instance, have you ever heard of razor blade pricing? I sell razors. I sell razors, Gillette razors, right? And I sell razor blades. Well, as it turns out, I actually, go ahead.
Isn't it cheaper to buy all the razors and all the replacements?
It might be. That's a different customer value proposition, but I'm selling razors and razor blades, trying to emphasize your higher quality than disposable or whatever. But here's my point. Is it possible that I price the razor itself below my cost? I actually lose money on the razor.
You make up with the blades.
If you buy my razor, you have to buy my blade. It's the only blade that fits it. And what do I charge for the blades?
Mark up.
Way up here, right? So the pricing of the razors did acknowledge cost, but I thought, but my strategy is a bit different than that, right? I might run a barbershop and find I actually make much more higher margins on selling products, shampoos, sprays, products, than I do on the haircuts themselves, right? Well, then maybe I start to organize my operations where I'm not making as much on the haircut, but I'm really pushing the products. When I come in to get a haircut, you go, Mike, you won't have this frizzy problem if you just use this. I got some right here. It's $20 a bottle. So, costs tell you where to start. And we've worked with entrepreneurs where you investigate their real costs that they're not acknowledging. And I've actually seen entrepreneurs whose price, they're losing money on every sale they make because they didn't understand their cost. So you do need to know your cost per unit. And this isn't as easy as it might sound. Go ahead.
I was just curious as to if you were coming to first establish what your business strategy would be. That is, do you want to be low cost or do you
I'm going to come to that in just 1 second. It's a very key question. So, I want to start by looking at costs. Then what do I look at? You said I need to look at the industry or what the competitors are charging, right? You do. And most entrepreneurs make another mistake. I'll say, listen, give me the 6 direct competitors for your candle business. And she will say, I don't have any competitors. I mean, there's other firms out there, but nobody does what I do. You got to get rid of that idea. You got competitors. Always there's something. Competing for the customer's wallet. So, I want to know what the competitors are charging on average, but they're not selling the same value proposition I am, and they may be targeting different customers than I am, but it's another reference point, okay? The most important consideration is customers demand value. The most important thing is the customer price perception and the value they see in the thing. So, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm having like the one of my instructors who had a t-shirt asked me to bring it back out. And I'm like, yeah, sure. He asked me to do, because it's suits and cities. He asked me to do a suits. So now I'm going to do 2 suits. And then I'm going to do 3. And it was interesting because I just went with what competition or industry standard is. But as I paid attention to people giving me tips, like all of a sudden, like instead of paying the $20 that I was charging, they would send me $25 or, send me $40 and say, buy somebody else, give this to somebody else for a shirt. And so it was very interesting because just looking at who bought my shirt and why they bought it. So there's competition that was selling shirts around in front of my house for like maybe $10 or $15. But people wanted to buy Black-owned businesses because it was that time. George Floyd had passed away, and the shirt was in demand. And then it became not just Milwaukee, but different cities, so it ended up going to 5. But the demand was there, so I probably could have charged more because so many people wanted to buy from Black-owned businesses and support a cause and rep their city. So I probably could have charged more than $20. So yeah, that was my
So yeah, and so those people that were sending you $35 or $40 weren't just saying, I want to support your business. The hidden message is, we see more value in what you're doing, what you're selling. Yeah, excellent.
Hey, Mike, this is really great. I'm just a little distracted. Would you mind bringing your mask? Is it possible? Your mask back out?
You're kidding.
A little bit, not really.
All right, sure.
Thank you.
We've been sitting here for 2.5 hours and I haven't had it all the way on, but sure, happy to do it. So, this is the key thing. Customer value, demand variables. There's another one here though, marketing strategy. Marketing strategy. What are you trying to do overall from a marketing standpoint? How are you trying to position yourself in the marketplace? How are you trying to differentiate yourself? So now you start to go back to the BIC versus the Mont Blanc example. They have different marketing strategies, different positioning points in the marketplace that they're striving to get. And lastly, legal issues. So you'll be surprised, but there just aren't many that will affect your pricing. If you collude with competitors to artificially set prices high, that's illegal. Okay? And if you try to, well, even this is not illegal unless it's really prosecuted. But if I go to, so southwestern Louisiana has been hit by 2 straight hurricanes in the last couple months, right? If I go down to southwestern Louisiana the day after a hurricane, and I got a flatbed truck, and I'm selling generators, what can I charge?
Generator.
Anything I want, right? I'll sell them all, right? Well, when you try to totally exploit a vulnerable market, you will attract legal attention. But beyond that, there's not much that constrains how you set your prices. So, what do we do in practice? Okay, so one other point. You may actually be making a couple different pricing decisions, not just one. You're not just setting price, but making multiple decisions. Sorry, it's flipping. So, price objectives is simply the answer to the question, what am I using the price of the product to accomplish? What am I using the price of the product to accomplish? Which could be projecting a certain image. It could be using one product to sell another product. If you go to the grocery store in about 2-3 weeks, around here, and you buy a turkey, okay, for Thanksgiving, buy a turkey, what will you find? You might find that. But most grocery stores are selling the turkey below cost. Why? Because if you come to their store to buy your turkey, you're also probably going to buy the mashed potatoes and the pumpkin pie and the green beans and the cranberry sauce on which they're all making some money, right? So your price strategy is using the turkey to sell other stuff. I might use a particular lower cost candle to incentivize people to buy other candles in my mix. Second issue is price strategy. Okay, I'm going to show you what that means in just a second. The magic thing is price structure. This is how you want to vary your prices by aspect of the product, type of customer, and time and form of payment. Price levels is, okay, we're going to charge $9.95. Price tactics would be, yes, but we're going to have a coupon, or a 2-for-1 deal, or a rebate, or a special Oktoberfest price, or something. Okay? So you're making a set of decisions. Where do I start?
Cost.
I start with these things outside, beginning with cost. That's exactly right. Excellent. So here's what I would start with. I would just map this out on a piece of paper. You can see, based on my rough analysis, I'm selling something where the price is probably going to fall somewhere between 75 and 180, right? What's my first consideration? What price do I have to charge to cover the cost of making the cake, or making the candle, or making the chair? That's right, how much it costs me to make it. Or if I'm selling wedding dresses, I got a wedding dress shop, I bought the wedding dresses from somebody, what did I pay for the wedding dresses? Okay? Now what? Well, you can see I've looked in the marketplace and I've found 3 competitors at different price points. Okay? So competitor A is a lower end quality competitor. Competitor C is a higher end player in the market. I got 3 price points. Go ahead.
What is the perceived value? How do I know what somebody else is?
You have to talk to customers. You have to spend some time interacting with customers. Yeah, you've just discovered that their perceptions were there's more value here than you initially thought. Because you're thinking, I get the shirts, I screen print them or do whatever I do to them. I need to carry them around and sell them. I get costs, and at $25 I can cover those costs. They're saying, yeah, but we don't care about your cost. We see, so recognize this. This is a very important question. I'll come to you in a second. I fly to, no, let's not use me. Okay, so Max, how you doing? Max goes down to Chicago because he's got a job interview tomorrow. And it's a job to die for. He really wants a job. And Max also has some buddies in Chicago. And the interview's tomorrow. But tonight, they go out and have a few beers, right? Have some fun in Chicago. He calls them up when he gets there, and they go on out. And Max is wearing his sports coat. Okay? And while eclipse the end scene. Right? And he discovers it when he gets back to his room where he's staying for the night. And the job interview is at 8 tomorrow morning, and this is the only coat he's got to wear to the job interview. You got to be saying, where the hell are you going with this guy? There's no place to call, there's nothing he can do. So he thinks, well, I'm not helpless. I'll go buy a sewing kit and just sew this myself. Okay? So he goes to Walgreens, which is open 24 hours, and he buys one of those little kits that has like 12 needles in it and some thread. With me? Max, what would you expect to pay for that little sewing kit? Give me a specific price. $3 on the head. $3. What amazing thing did you just witness?
He valued it himself.
Max, have you ever bought a sewing kit in your life?
I have not.
He has not. I picked on him because I guessed he probably had not. But what was amazing? He came up with the price. He never said, Mike, I've never bought one of those. I don't have a clue. He said $3. And he didn't pause. He said $3. When customers go to buy something, they have what we call a reference price in mind. A reference price. What's the reference price based on? It could be based on previous buying experience, or it could just be based on what he thinks it's worth. Right? Would he be surprised if I told him he can get that sewing kit for $1.48?
He could get your free parts out there.
Well, he could do that too, but we're looking at price here. So if you think about what happens when people buy, is they go into the market, even for something they never bought, with a reference price. And the interesting thing is what happens when they encounter prices that differ meaningfully from the reference price.
Yeah, because people in Walgreens don't understand. They probably can pay like $6, $7 as opposed to $3. And they know that because if you're buying it here,
He'll pay the $6.
it's because you need it.
That's right. So they understand his value perception, which is what you were asking about, the perceived value, right? They've looked at it, they've studied it, and you need to talk to some customers, you get a sense. So what I've identified is 3 market segments. There's a low-end market segment, there's a mid-range market segment, and there's a primo market segment that will pay for whatever, right? If I'm selling the sewing kits to you, you're not paying $6. I bet he would pay the $6. Got to fix the jacket, right? Don't have a lot of time. So now I got a range, okay? And what you're trying to decide is where to be in that range, okay? And that gets us to this question. I'm coming. That gets us to this question. Price strategy. We talk about 3 basic pricing strategies. This is not 3 points. This is a continuum, so it's any number of points. But penetration pricing is charging a price perceived to be low relative to what customers expect to pay, what customers think competitors charge, customer value perceptions. And premium pricing is charging a price perceived to be high. Parity pricing is charging at or near what I think competitors charge, what I think it's worth. Okay, so let me let you ask your question.
I was going to ask, is it valuable to talk to customers about what they think about the competitor's price as well?
Yeah, in fact, I don't typically talk about my own price. if I can get a sense of what they would pay, not just what they do pay, but what would you pay for? So, if you went to the movies last night, it's not a lot of people going to movies right now, but if you went to the movie theater last night, and in fact, in South Bend, movie theater's open now, but you go to the movie, you come out of the movie. All of you have probably done that at some point in time. And you're with your sweetie or somebody significant, and you're coming out of the movie theater, and you think, hey, let's get ice cream cone, because there's a little ice cream shop right there next to the theater. Okay? So, how you doing? If it was you, what would you expect to pay for a double scoop of chocolate chip ice cream cone?
Depends on what color.
Give me a price.
Price.
You're with your sweetie, there's an ice cream store, I'm gonna go in and get a double scoop of chocolate chip, what would you expect to pay?
$2.50.
$2.50. I think it'd be a little higher than that, but
Then what color you want to know?
But that's very helpful because she's just given us her reference price, what she would expect to pay. Now, and she may be rethinking it now too because I put her on the spot. But no, okay, she's going with the 250. So let's say the typical person answered the question, I expect to pay about $4. Okay? If you charge $4, if that's the price they encounter, that's parity pricing. People normally think, oh, that's about a $4 purchase. If you went into the place and it was $1.20 a cone, that's penetration pricing. It's psychologically, meaningfully different, lower. And if you went in and it was $9 a cone, that's premium pricing. You must be putting Jack Daniels in the ice cream or something, but you've got a premium price point. So you might want to price slightly above parity, slightly below parity. You may want to be closer to premium, but that's what you're trying to do, is decide that point on the continuum. So they're just setting up lunch for you guys. Yes?
Wouldn't that be based on which side of the parity? Wouldn't that be based on like where you're located? Like how much your customers can afford to pay?
If I'm targeting, so this is a very good example. We have a lady in our program in South Bend, and she makes body butter, like shea butter or whatever. And she's got some unique formulation, and she's doing good stuff. She's a lot of fun. But working with her, the students are trying to convince her of about a $17 price point, right? And she's stuck on, she's moving, she's adjusting her thinking, but she's stuck on a $9 or so price, $8 or $9, right? But why? Well, some of her motion of thinking is, I want to help young women in my neighborhood have really quality beauty products that they can afford, right? Well then, she's pricing based on a particular target market, right? But she's very clear, her real ambition is to reach other market segments. And that $8, $9 price tag just isn't going to work with those other market segments. So it is going to be based on who you're targeting. It's going to be based on these things. So you see these considerations over here? What do I mean by the ease of differentiation?
Customers can tell yours is of either a better quality or.
Is Starbucks pretty well differentiated from McDonald's on coffee?
Yeah.
Must be, right? The bigger the difference, and the bigger the market perceives the difference, the more justification you have to go to premium, right? But if people don't see a meaningful difference between your candles and anybody else's candles, you're forced more towards parity or even penetration, okay? So that's why you're looking for differentiation, because it means a different value proposition, different price point. Yes, ma'am, you had a question.
Yes, what about price ranges? Like if you're doing virtual events, there's different types of events, so you can only do like $1,000 to $2,000. So it can't be exactly penetration pricing to premium. So you would have to give the customer a range or like do a consultation.
Oh, yes, so what you're saying, and this is, we're about to come to this, but this has to do with whether you are charging fixed list prices or you're dealing with either negotiated prices like in an event where you say I can do it for, so one of our entrepreneurs is a caterer. And when we did the closing event for the 6 weeks of training, we paid him to cater the event. Well, what's that mean? Because I don't have any money trying to do this program, but I don't have a big budget. Notre Dame isn't paying for the program. What do I have to do? I got to negotiate, right? So I'm negotiating the price per meal, right? I want to be fair to him, but I know I don't have any money. So we negotiated, and we ended up somewhere where he was quite happy, and I was able to pay for it. So, but even so, that range that you're willing to, and you have to have the discipline to go, I'm sticking to the range. I'm not going to get in the middle of negotiation and suddenly promise a price that is way out of my range, way low, right? But the range still becomes more reflective of, I'm the finest event organizer in this community. I position myself as the high event manager or organizer versus somewhere else on the continuum. So the range is more at the high end or more in the mid-range or more at the bottom, which gives you flexibility because you have different segments that are getting more value or less. If I'm getting more value, I'm less price sensitive, right? I'll pay the higher price. So, customer segments, so if there are unique segments that I don't care what everybody else pays, they'll pay the freight, right? So, might it be if I have a cleaning service and I'm cleaning doctors' houses, and those houses are in neighborhoods where the house prices are up here, that's a market segment. I can justify charging, my normal price is $35 an hour, but I'm going to charge $60, right? So unique market segments. The intensity of competition now and what's coming. The more intense the competition, the more you're forced towards parity or even below parity. But what you do not want to do, same theme, you don't want to purely compete on price. I run into so many entrepreneurs who go, well, my difference is I'm the low price provider. And my response to them is, then you have no difference. Because if you're, the only game you're playing is I underprice everybody else, it's just a matter of time before somebody comes along and underprices you. And then you got no choice but to match it or go lower, which means you're just shooting yourself in the foot, just taking away whatever margin there is. If there are, if she starts making body butter in large quantities, and so her unit cost of the body butter comes way down, well, she might price more aggressively to get the volume necessary to achieve that scale. Okay? So, you get some, so we're running down on time, but the key thing is, remember we go back, sorry, price strategy I just talked about, price objective I talked about. The key is price structure, okay? So, price structure is where the creativity comes into play. Do you need, here's a good question for everybody. Do you need to charge the exact same price to every single customer? No, you don't. But some people think you do. It's not fair. Right? I actually think it's not fair to charge everybody the same price in many instances. Because if you're getting twice as much value as he's getting, shouldn't you pay more? And you go, yeah, Mike, but how does that work? Charging different people different prices for the same thing. Have you ever been to a bar on ladies' night? What are they doing? Charging ladies one price and men a different price. You ever got on a bus and the price for senior citizens is lower than the price for everybody else? They're charging two different customer segments, two different prices. Right? So, you're looking for different market segments that differ in their price sensitivity. Okay? Now, let's come back to an example I used earlier. If you were an airline and you did your market research, what would you discover about the market?
It's low right now.
That there are many segments, but the two big segments, the biggest breakdown would be what? Business travelers versus pleasure or personal vacation travelers, yes. So, there's two market segments. Agree? Are they equally price sensitive? What's the difference between them? The business travelers are more price insensitive. The pleasure or personal, you and me, travelers, not traveling on business, are more price sensitive. Okay. Now, how will I make the most money? I'll make the most money if I can figure out a way to charge the business travelers one price and the personal pleasure travelers a different price. That's a fact. If you can find ways to differ your prices for different segments based on their value perceptions, you will make more money. You will earn more revenue. The problem is, how do I do it without pissing customers off? Well, that's changing the product a little bit. So that's true. You could have classes of, economy or whatever. But I'm a consumer, not a business person. I still want to pay for the first class, so that doesn't do a good job of distinguishing the two. So here's what airlines did. Well, when you book it, but I may have a last minute booking because my sister's dying and I got to get to, right? But this is where imagination comes in. This is where knowing your customer intimately comes in. For many years, if I called up the airline, hey, I need a ticket to fly up to Chicago. They'd say, sure, buddy, we'll give you a ticket. Well, how much is the ticket? And they'd say it's $650. And I say, what? $650? I say, you sure? Yeah, it's $650. I say, look in that computer some more. They go, sorry, sir, it's $650. I said, come on, there has to be a cheaper. No, the price, you want a ticket or not, buddy? $650. It's $650 unless And I say, well, unless what? They say, it's $650 unless you include a Saturday night in your stay. And I say, what? Yeah, if you had a Saturday night in your stay, the price is only $350. I say, let me get this right. If I go to Chicago, but there's a Saturday night included in the stay, I meant Saturday night, but there's a Saturday night included in the stay, the price is $350. But if I go to Chicago on Wednesday and come back on Friday, it's a higher price, $650. That's what they would do. Why would they do that?
Yeah, they do that because they have less people book.
On Sunday?
Yeah, that's
No. It's a good guess. It's a popular guess. Or they got some deal with the hotels. No.
The business people would be done with their business by Friday versus
That's it. It's just a very clever way. I mean, if you called me up and you said, I want to go to Chicago, and I said, well, buddy, you going on business or you're going on pleasure? You'd go, well, which one's cheaper? Well, pleasure's cheap. Okay, I'm going on pleasure. So it won't work. But by having a Saturday night stay, well, they know. If you're traveling on business, are you going to try to save your company some money by staying over an extra night? No, you'll pay the $650. But if I'm traveling on pleasure, and you say, Mike, if you stay a Saturday night, it's only $350, I'll go, shit, I'll stay in Chicago an extra night. It was just a clever scheme to creatively distinguish. You know, it's not perfect, but it worked pretty well for a long time. You see what I'm saying? So price structure, and we're just about done. Price structure is like that. I have no computer skills. It's everything, how you want to change prices by aspect of the product, type of user, time and form of payment. So for instance, I charge veterans a different price than non-veterans. I charge college students a different price than I charge people over 25. So different market segments get different prices. You'll find at car rental places, government employees often are quoted a different price, especially if you're in Madison where there are a bunch of government employees, than non-government employees. So this is where the creativity happens. I said by type of customer, type of segment, different prices. Also, how I charge different prices based on aspects of the product. I have a gym. The gym, the workout place, right? And my fee to be a member in the gym is $475 a year. Okay? $475 a year. However, I find that the gym, which has a lot of fixed costs, is very busy early in the morning, it's very busy midday, and it's very busy between 5 and 7, but it's dead between 2 and 5 in the afternoon, and yet I can't shut down, I can't let people go home, I need to keep the heat on or the whatever. What could I do?
Charge higher membership prices at the peak time.
No, yes, I could do that. Or I'll sell you a membership. It's only $220 a year, less than half the normal price. But it's a membership and you can only come on weekdays between 1 and 5. That's playing with the price structure. Or you like to go to the gym, but only to use the free weights. You don't want to do all the cycling and the pool and all that. You only want to swim. I'll sell you a swimming membership. Swimming membership's $120 a year. but you can't use anything else. You can only use cool. Could I do that? It's about creativity. How you play with the price structure. So bundling and unbundling. Everybody knows those terms now because the phone and the internet and now the insurance companies bundle your car with your house, with your motorcycle, whatever. But unbundling also works. Are there restaurants where you basically pay $15 for a meal and they bundle the entree, the salad, the drink? And are there restaurants you can go to that unbundle? You pay for the potato, you pay for the beans, you pay for the drink, you pay for the, right? A la carte just means unbundle. For years, my bank in the United States would charge me a flat fee per month to have an account. Okay? I also had a bank account in South Africa. They would unbundle. Every time I wrote a check, there's a charge. Every time I use the ATM, there's a charge. Want your checks back at the end of the month? We charge you for that. Not better or worse, just a different sort of pricing approach. So, low base price and add-ons at higher margin. Priced differently at lower peak times. Unlimited use of the product or service for a flat fee. All you can eat tonight at Colonel Sanders is exactly that, right? Base price and then variable charges once a threshold is reached. You see that with data plans on phones. Keep going. Keep on playing. Different prices for different segments, loyalty schemes for past or heavy users. It's about creativity. Now I hope you're seeing price is a pretty interesting variable. You can get pretty powerful and creative here. The last thing is setting the price level. And here you see tactics introduced. For instance, in America, which is not true in all other parts of the world, you will find lots of prices that say $9.95. You will find very few prices that say $10. That's a practice we call odd pricing. Most prices in our economy end in a 5 or a 9, an odd number. Why? It's part of the psychology of pricing in that the assumption is customers will associate $9.95 more with 9, it's called an anchor of 9, than they do with 10, even though it's 10, right? Does that actually influence sales? The evidence shows it does not. That it's almost like a business custom than anything else. And here's another final point. What if I have a range of candles or a range of things? How do I price across a product line? Well, here, Pierre, the psychology comes back in. What do you notice about the way I've priced these cars at a car rental place?
Three of them were like an even number.
Don't worry about the even on. What do you notice about what I've done right here? Is this the proper way to price it? Right, but see who can see the more subtle point.
You're giving people a reference of value?
What do you look? Yes, you are. And what's happening as I go up the price range? It's what? Bingo. You see how the gap gets bigger as I go up the line? The amount of difference from the low end to the next one, then the difference gets bigger, then it gets bigger. That's a key lesson learned about the psychology of pricing. What we've learned is, what are you trying to convey? That this is more value than this is more, sorry. That this, as we go up, the value is going up, right? Well, what the evidence tells us is to convey equal increments in quality increase, price has to increase even more. The gap has to get bigger. So, I hope this gives you some food for thought. When you think about pricing, Patrick asked me to spend a little time on it, and these rules. So, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure to spend some time with you. I hope you do amazing things. And I think we're going to have lunch.
Yeah, after we give you a round of